The Sacred Beast archetype, known in the Japanese as the Three Phantasms, are a series of monsters that act as the next generation of Egyptian god cards. In comparison to them, the Sacred Beasts are actually a lot easier to be summoned to the field. This is due mainly to their unique summoning requirements. However, as a result, their overall strength seems to be slightly diminished in comparison to the Egyptian god counterparts. This could be in essence a result of them being the phantasms of the gods themselves. Though it is worth noting that the similarities between the sacred beasts and the Egyptian gods are, well, pretty obvious really. Weirdly enough, it has never been outright stated in the manga, show, or any form of Yu-Gi-Oh media that there is actually any correlation between the two series of cards. In fact, their backstory is only briefly explained and is overall pretty vague. Long ago, there were once three immensely powerful beasts that roamed the lands. Through their mere presence, they were able to engulf the world in darkness and destruction. At some point later, they were found as tablets in ancient Egypt, where they were transformed into real cards. It was at this point that their dark power was discovered. A man named Kagemaru obtained them and tried to use their power for his own. However, the time was not right, and so he sealed them beneath Duel Academy, until a time that a person with enough dueling energy would emerge to awaken the slumbering beasts. Eventually, he got what he desired, by using Jaden Yuki's dueling energy, allowing him to resurrect the sacred beasts and use their power to regain his youth and give him superhuman-like strength. Enough strength, in fact, for him to rule over the entire world. In fact, I actually prefer the way Kagemaru says it. I really like his voice.
Giving me enough strength to rule the world!
And since the sacred beasts drained the energy from all duel monsters from across the world, no one would be able to stop him. However, of course, they did, as he was defeated by Jaden Yuki and the cards were sealed once again. That is, until Ubel appeared and took them for one of her own decks. However, in the end, after a good old try, the sacred beasts would finally be laid to rest, after she too was defeated by Jaden. And sadly, that is all the backstory we really get on these three monsters. Honestly, they're cool cards, and a bit more info would have been appreciated from me. It's the same with the shadow charms as well. They were linked to the sacred beasts, however they too had very little backstory, and then they just vanished from the story when their importance ended. Never mind, I guess. Anyway, in the real world card game, their debut was in 2005's Shadow of Infinity in Japan, with further support being added in limited edition 10 Chaos Black 2 years later, and then again with their final support in the 20th anniversary pack first in 2016. So how about we look at each one of the sacred beasts, starting with Raviel, Lord of Phantasms, known in the Japanese as Raviel, Lord of Phantasmal Demons. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by attributing 3 fiend type monsters, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. If your opponent normal summons a monster or monsters, special summon 1 phantasm token, a fiend type dark level 1, 1000 attack, 1000 defense for each monster summoned, but it cannot declare an attack. Once per turn, you contribute 1 monster. This card gains attack equal to the original attack of the attributed monster until the end of this turn. Raviel, Lord of Phantasms is based, of course, on OBELISK the Tormentor. Since originally Raviel featured a blue card border, just like OBELISK's original design, Raviel and OBELISK share almost identical appearances as well as the same attack and defense values. Like all sacred beasts and Egyptian gods, they require 3 tributes for the monster to be summoned. In the case of Raviel, his unique feature is that it requires 3 fiend monsters to be summoned. And the last comparison between the two is that Raviel and OBELISK both require monsters to be sacrificed in order for them to use their effects. Raviel gets his name from the Judeo-Christian angel Raziel, which in Hebrew, Raziel's name means secret of God. In the novels The Mortal Instruments, there's a character called Raziel, who appears as the angel of the Shadow Hunters, a society that hunts down demons. This is pretty ironic, as Raviel, Lord of Phantasms, is being sought after by by the Shadow Riders themselves. This monster's name is Raviel. However, that wasn't always necessarily going to be the case, as there was a chance he could have had a very different name. According to a Pojo post created by an Upper Deck Entertainment employee, he said that Raviel was originally going to be called Genma, alluding to this monster possibly having the full name of Genma, Lord of Phantasms. The only reason that this name did not stick was because a third party stepped in and demanded the name be changed under the grounds that they didn't like the word, because to them it just wasn't cool enough. So I have to ask, what do you think of the name Genma Lord of Phantasms or Genma Lord of the Phantasmal Demons? Would you have preferred it, or was Raviel the way to go? Let me know. Raviel in the anime is actually quite a bit different to that of its real-world counterpart. For example, it is treated as a divine attributed divine beast type monster, putting it on par with the Egyptian gods and adding it to a very short list of divine monsters. Whereas in the real-world card game, it is simply a dark fiend type monster, which ever so slightly diminishes its legendary status. It's also worth mentioning that Raviel's effect is also slightly different too, as instead of requiring free fiend type monsters for its summon, the anime version requires just any free types of monsters, making the type of deck that Raviel would have to be in much more flexible. Also, while the real world Raviel can summon a phantasm token for normal summoned monsters, which effectively limits this ability to once per turn, the anime Raviel has no such limit and has its effect react to any type of summon. The last difference between the two is that the real world Raviel can only tribute one monster to boost his attack, whereas the anime Raviel can tribute 2 monsters. This in turn gives the anime Raviel much more potential to reach even greater heights. Fun fact, while all the sacred beasts made their debuts in the Shadows of Infinity booster pack, Raviel was the one chosen to serve as the cover card for both it and Dark Revelation Volume 4. And finally, Raviel's attack name is called Celestial Ravaging Fist in the Japanese anime and Shimmering Scraper in the dub. Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, known in the Japanese as Uriah, Lord of the Divine Flames. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by sending 3 face-up trap cards you control to the graveyard, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 1000 attack for each continuous trap card in your graveyard. Once per turn, you can target one set, spell, or trap card your opponent controls, destroy that target. Neither player can activate spell or trap cards in response to this effect's activation. Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, is based on Slifer the Sky Dragon. Since originally it featured a red card border, just like Slifer's original card design, both Uriah and Slifer share almost identical appearances, what with them both having long red snake-like bodies and the double set of teeth. And like all sacred beasts and Egyptian gods, they require 3 tributes for them to be summoned. Uniquely for Uriah, he requires 3 continuous trap cards on the field to be sent to the grave. The last similarity between the two is that Uriah and Slifer both require a count of cards somewhere to determine their actual attack value, which is specifically multiplied by 1000 for each card. Uriah, like the other sacred beasts, gets his name from Judeo-Christian angels. Uriah's is derived from Uriel, whose name means God's Flame. He was an angel chosen to guard the flames of purgatory, which fits perfectly with this monster, as Uriah himself is the Lord of Flames, just like Uriel. Now, if we compare anime Uriah Lord of Searing Flames to his real-world counterpart, we can see that anime Uriah has quite a few benefits. First of all, it only requires 3 trap cards, not specifically continuous trap cards, and nor do they have to be face up or face down. It can be anything. As an extension to this as well, anime Uriah's attack is boosted by any type of trap card in the graveyard, not just continuous ones, making anime Uriah much more potentially powerful. And though they do both share the same spell trap destruction ability, anime Uriah has one more unique effect that makes it just a bit more powerful. And that is, if it is destroyed during the main phase, you can bring it back by discarding a trap card from your hand. Though if it is brought back, it loses its other effects and can't attack if there is another monster on the field for just that turn. Uriah appears in the artwork of Phantasmal Martyrs and Phantom of Chaos. It's really difficult to see it into this monster. It's just the silhouette of the monster. It's a little bit easier to see in the anime version, but it is there, and if you can see it, well done, because it took me forever to see that card. Finally, Uriah's attack is called Hyper Blaze in both the Japanese and English, while his ability to destroy face down back row is called simply Trap Destruction, which isn't a totally accurate name since it does also destroy spell cards in the anime, but meh. Who am I to judge? Hamon, Lord of Striking Thunder. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by sending 3 face-up continuous spell cards you control to the graveyard and cannot be special summoned by other ways. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. While this card is in face-up defense position, monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters for attacks, except this one. Hamon, Lord of Striking Thunder is based on the Winged Dragon of Ra. As both originally featured yellow card borders for their designs, both Hamon and Ra share almost identical appearances, what with their yellow color schemes and phoenix-inspired designs. As well, the 3 things needed for the summon of Hamon are continuous spell cards, which of course matches the theme of needing 3 sacrifices to get out these monsters. Finally, both monsters' effects require them to pay 1000 life points in response for their abilities, though who has to pay for them is where it differs. As for the Winged Dragon of Ra, to destroy a monster, the owner has to pay 1000 life points. Whereas for Hamon, Lord of Striking Thunder, if he destroys a monster, the opponent loses 1000 life points instead. It's worth mentioning that Raviel, Uriah, and Hamon all feature 3 unique aspects to their designs. One is their skeletal-like design, giving off an essence that the creatures underneath are simply wearing the Egyptian gods to disguise themselves. The second is their transparent wings, and the third is how they all feature an abundance of razor-sharp claws. Fun fact, by the way, an interesting change that occurs between the Egyptian gods and the sacred beasts is that Uriah is the master of flames, whereas Slifer the Sky Dragon is a master of lightning. So that means that since Ra is a master of flames, being a phoenix born from the flames himself, Hamon is now a master of lightning. So it seems the 2 monsters have had their elements swapped over for the sacred beast counterparts. Kind of makes sense though, as the elements match more closely to their color schemes. So yeah, I guess it makes sense. Oh, and we also have Obelisk and Raviel sitting over there, who I think they're both masters of darkness, I guess? Though Obelisk is kind of more stone. I don't know. Darkness sounds right. Hamon's name is the only one of the sacred beasts not to have a change from the OCG to the TCG, with the actual name itself of Hamon possibly being a reference to a Hamon of the same name, which is the unique effect you sometimes see on certain types of swords. More likely though, continuing with the Judeo-Christian themes, Hamon's name is derived from the Book of Esphir, in which it references an evil man known as Haman, who is known for being the one responsible for the attempted murder of the king of Persia and all his Jewish subjects. His name roughly translates to magnificent, a stark contrast to the man that this name was given. Some differences between the original anime version of Hamon and the real world one are: anime Hamon requires any spell card to be sent to the graveyard, not specifically face-up continuous spells, and if it is destroyed while in defense position, you take no further damage for the rest of the turn in the anime. So of course, like many other anime versions of cards, the sacred beasts are just genuinely more powerful in the anime. But if I'm honest, I feel like some of these abilities could have carried over to the real world, and they still wouldn't have been too strong, and it would have made them more sacred, you know? Did you know that this monster is the strongest in terms of attack, defense, and level in comparison to all other Thunder-type monsters in the game? And this monster appears in the artworks of Phantasmal Martyrs and the anime-exclusive card Dimension Fusion Destruction. And finally, this card's attack name is called Lost Thunder in the Japanese and Cerulean Sky Fire in the dub, while its effect to deal damage is Hell's Punishment in the Japanese. Armatile, the Chaos Phantom, known in the Japanese as Chaos Phantom Demon, Archetype. Requires Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, Haman, Lord of Striking Thunder, and Raviel, Lord of Phantasms. Must first be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control. You do not use polymerization. Cannot be destroyed by battle. This card gains 10,000 attack during your turn only. Like all of the other sacred beasts, this card too has a counterpart in the Egyptian gods. Specifically, Archetype is the sacred beast counterpart of Horikofi, the creator god of light. Since both are the combined forms of the three as well, both have a devastating ability, with Horikofi being able to instantly win the game on its summon, and Archetype gaining an incredible 10,000 attack points, which I must add gives Archetype the award of the highest single attack boosting effect in the game, as well as the only monster to actually refer to a 5-digit value. It's worth taking a second to talk about this monster's anime effect, as they are a little bit different too. For starters, this monster in the anime requires the spell card Dimension Fusion Destruction in order to be summoned to the field, which essentially acts as a polymerization card unique to this monster. It is due to this that the real-world Archetype is actually much easier to summon than the anime version. A confusing part to its anime ability is that it has this part of its effect. You can inflict 10,000 battle damage to a monster your opponent controls. Due to its changing in the wording, instead of being able to increase its attack to 10,000, instead, if this monster attacks a monster, the damage that you deal is 10,000. So, okay. A completely new aspect to this monster's effect though is that during your main phase you can switch control of this card to your opponent until the end of this turn. If you do, remove from play all of the monsters your opponent controls during the end phase of this turn. The last ability could have just been for overkill in case of a worst case scenario, however in the anime it seems like the perfect ploy for Ubel to use to get over Adrian Gecko, so it could just be a little bit of an ass pull ability. Archetype's attack is called Metamorphosis Wave in the Japanese and Transmigration Wave in the dub, while its effect to remove all the cards on the field is called Null Vision Rashomon in the Japanese and Phantom of Fury in the dub. And finally, Archetype is the cover card for Limited Edition 10 Chaos Black. Moving on to the support cards, we have Dark Summoning Beast, known as Dark Summoning God in the Japanese. Its effect is you contribute this card, special summon 1 Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, Haman, Lord of Striking Thunder, or Raviel, Lord of Phantasms from your deck or hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. Also, monsters you control cannot attack for the rest of this turn. You can only use this effect of Dark Summoning Beast once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, Haman, Lord of Striking Thunder, or Raviel, Lord of Phantasms from your deck to your hand. Phantasmal Martyrs, known in the Japanese as Phantasmal Demon Martyrs. Activate only while you have 2 or more cards in your hand and control a face-up Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, or a Haman, Lord of Striking Thunder. Send your entire hand to the graveyard to special summon 3 Phantasmal Martyr tokens. Fiend type Dark, level 1, attack 0, defense 0 in attack position. Finally, Fallen Paradise, known in the Japanese as Paradise Lost. Its effect is you cannot target Uriah, Haman, Raviel, and Archetype in your monster zones with card effects. Also, those monsters cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects while you control them. If you control Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, Haman, Lord of Striking Thunder, Raviel, Lord of Phantasms, or Archetype, the Chaos Phantom in your monster zone, you can draw 2 cards. You can only use this effect of Fallen Paradise once per turn. And with that, that is the Sacred Beast archetype done.